Well, hi everybody,
Hi, everybody.
and welcome to the Big Idea Podcast. I'm Eric Bramlett, and this is Tim Sutherland. Hi, Tim.
Hello, Eric.
How are you today?
I'm well.
Oh,
Thank you.
Very good.
Muy bien, amigo. Gracias.
Oh, bilingual. Very nice. I like it. Don't understand it, but I like it. We are here to talk today about a brand new series for the Big Idea. It's a 3-weeker over the summer. Into the middle of July, and I think into the first week of August. Is that correct? No, we're just skating through the rest of July, because of course July has lots of weeks in it. But this is 3 weeks in July, and it is called Be Rich. And who doesn't want to be rich, Tim? Who doesn't?
Well, nobody doesn't, but nobody admits they do.
Ah, so it's like a feigned non-desire?
Because you can complete this sentence.
Okay.
I don't want to be rich. I just want to be...
I want to be... Well, see, okay. No, I can't finish it. I just want to be... I went right to safe in my head, but that's not...
Well, it's not bad. Financially secure.
Right, secure, yeah.
Or comfortable.
Comfortable, that's the word.
I don't want to be rich. I want to be financially secure or comfortable.
I don't want to be rich. I just want to be wealthy. No, that's not it. But the reality is, in our environments, we're pretty rich, whether we like to admit it or not.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to be covering 3 different kind of areas in which God has called us. You think God has called us to be rich?
Well, it's interesting because we're looking at one particular text from 1 Timothy where the Apostle Paul is speaking to his young ward,
Yes.
Timothy, saying, command those who are rich. And it's really interesting because not many places in the New Testament do you have commands given to specific groups of people. It's usually addressing the whole church. But Paul says, instruct those who are rich, or command those who are rich. And then the rest of what we're doing with this series. So it's really kind of fascinating. So one of the big challenges of this series is helping people embrace the idea that if you have a roof over your head and a car and enough food to eat and a computer, you already have more than at least 98% of people on the planet. And they'll still walk out going, but I'm not rich.
Right.
And really what he means is instruct those who are not struggling for existence every day. So the idea of rich here is anybody who is living above a subsistence level.
So it would be probably pretty safe to say that a good portion, most, if not all, of the people that we are trying to reach fit that category.
Yeah, we kicked it around a lot in teaching team, and what we came up with is we said, if you're a single mom and are not sure if you're going to have a place to live within the next 2 weeks and are borrowing somebody's car and are not sure if you can feed your kids sometime in the next 2 weeks, this doesn't apply to you.
Everybody else?
Everybody else, welcome to Be Rich.
Welcome to Be Rich. All right, well, so...
Not to be confused with...
I don't know.
Bewitched.
Bewitched.
Which is
great. Now you've given Alec an idea for a series bumper.
So now
he's going to come in with his 2 Darrens, and it's going to be Bewitched. I can't wait to see that on the board for the Big Idea Factory. Sad. Dislike, Alec. Dislike. All right. Well, let's talk. Does that give us enough for the overall series? Are we ready to dive into week 1, or is there other things with regards to what he's saying to Timothy?
Well, it's really kind of cool. We're doing something we've never done in a series before. So the beginning of every week starts the same thing. Hey, we're rich. I know you're not going to admit it, but you are. And something special said to you. But then there's this thing that said afterwards, which is kind of an admonition to the rich, saying, so you'll actually be rich, and you'll be storing up treasures for the world. For the age that is to come. And you'll be taking hold of life which is really life. So it's like, if you're rich, be rich this way. Week 1, week 2, week 3. Because that is how to be rich in the age that is to come, and how you take hold of life, which is really life in the age that you're in now. So we're bookending each thing, each verse or subject, depending on how much pressure you feel to say we teach the Bible expositorily.
Right.
This one covers both. We really believe.
Yep.
And so it's really we're developing that thematically. We're all rich, and we all need to be more concerned about being rich in the age that is to come, which leads to being rich in the life that we're living now anyhow.
Thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven.
Something like that.
A little bit.
That's well put.
Yeah. Well, that's not mine.
Did you post that on?
I posted that on Facebook.
I was going to say, it was a retweet, wasn't it?
It was a total retweet.
Okay.
It was hashtag POW. All right. Well, let's talk about week 1 then. Week 1 is what we have we've coined a phrase. We've tried to identify certain times over the year as Thy Kingdom Come weekends, and so they're weekends that we're specifically trying to encourage campuses to be cognizant of the way in which your campus is being called to restore your community. And so it's one of those things that really, in a way, can't necessarily happen globally in the sense from a central standpoint. It really, from a communication standpoint, from an identification standpoint, needs to be something that you're using your own metrics at your community, at your campus, to determine. But we wanted to kind of place it there and highlight it and understand that this big idea services itself very well to aligning yourself with, promoting, communicating, enhancing vision for the restore component at your campus. So before we do anything on the content, just want to make sure that you're aware of that for this week. This is a big week for that. Take advantage of that. Figure out ways to apply that to your weekend services and your small group experiences. But here we are. Be rich. And we want to be rich in good deeds. Week number 1.
Week number 1.
And so what's the big idea for good deeds? What's the big deal about good deeds, Tim?
Well, it's interesting about the whole idea of being rich in them, because that's really not what we try to do. What we try to do is do what we're supposed to do, or do what we're commanded to do, or do what we can do, make a little difference in the world if we can. And yet the whole idea of going, I gauge the wealth and richness of my life in good deeds, a life that's rich in them. Because if a life is rich in money, then you have a lot of money and you're always trying to get more.
Right.
And so a life that's rich in good deeds, it's almost like, think of it this way, the person who not just wants to get more money, but loves it and is really into it, and when they get more, they're like, oh, yeah. As their bank account gets higher, they get personally, kind of emotionally higher. We're trying to go, what would it look like to be a person like that, who that's what really juices them? Some people check the stock market every day. Some people check their, I check my bank account balance every day. That's mostly not to see it going up, but to make sure it's not going down past the point where they find me. Danger, Will Robinson. So, but we're looking at this idea of what's because the apostle says, command those who are rich to do good and to be rich in good deeds. So he actually uses the phrase to be rich in good deeds, which I think is just rhetorically, in the positive sense of the word, brilliant. That's who those people are, man. They are just juiced when they get to do something that impacts somebody else positively. They're trying to amass as many of those experiences as possible, not to look, because nobody, very, very few people amass wealth in their, they don't let other people know. When you're rich, you don't go, you know what, I was able to put away $12,000 in this first quarter because the stock market hit new highs. Nobody's talking like that. They're going, it's pretty good. Yeah, well, we're doing okay.
Well.
And seeing being rich in good deeds is kind of like that. You know, Jesus says you don't let your right hand know what your left hand's doing. So it's not about rejoicing with other people and making yourself look good. It's this inner satisfaction that comes from going, wow, I had a lot of those today. Today was a good day. There's not been one single solitary day in my entire life that I measured by the quality of and quantity of how many opportunities I had that day to really help somebody. Never once. I'm usually looking for that one big thing that makes me feel really good, you know, instead of going, that good deeds could become the metric
Right.
for wealth.
Right.
We didn't make up be rich in good deeds. Those are the very words from Scripture. Apostle Paul, say what you want. He is a literary genius. Command the rich to be rich in good deeds.
And it's a lot more powerful, I think, than pay it forward even.
Oh.
You know, which has sort of become in vogue, you know, to pay it forward, which is not a negative sentiment necessarily,
No.
but it is kind of conditionally based on what you get. So if I get something, then I pay it forward.
Yeah.
This is about a savings account.
Yeah.
Of these things.
Yeah, and the idea that when I do this, I'm storing up treasure for the age that is to come. Because it's not moralistic. He's not saying because then they are good Christians, or because then they are examples to the Christian community. It says no, because then they're storing up treasures for the age that is to come, and grabbing hold of life that is really life. And it's like going, wow, the age that is to come isn't about me getting what I want in my own personal Disneyland called heaven. The age that is to come is this collection of people who live in community that's built around this notion of everybody doing good to everybody else, because that's the God who's at the center of it. I think it's really profound. I've read this text 1,000 times. I've never seen this stuff in it before, and so at least it's going to be a good series for me.
Well, there you go. And something that we have heard before, we're going to pair this text with the story, the parable of the Good Samaritan.
And we made the intentional choice to go with the most, unfortunately, potentially considered as hackneyed one of them all, because there's just so much there in terms of this guy people don't know the Good Samaritan. They think they know the Good Samaritan, but they don't know. The Good Samaritan is not somebody who found somebody in need and helped him. That's not what happened. There's so much more to that. There is a richness, see what I did there? Mm-hmm. There is a richness to his story that I think goes, look, imagine that he's like this guy that this is what he does. It's like I have this friend whose goal every day is to meet as many new people as possible, have a miniature personal conversation with them about their lives, and at the end of the thing say, hey, it's just kind of my thing to ask people how I can pray for them. He quantifies and qualifies the value of each day by how many people he actually got to have a real conversation where he really got it to ask them, how may I pray for you? And he writes it down and he stays in contact with them, and it's like that's the richness of his day. And my image of this famous Good Samaritan is that he did stuff like this all the time because he was into it. And it was like when it would happen to him, he wouldn't go like, crap, I gotta go help somebody again because I got a reputation to hold up here because I'm the Good Samaritan. He was like going, his wife would go, how was your day, honey? And he would go, dude, I ran into 3 people today who needed me. It was awesome. See, to me, this has got the possibility to change how I think about every single day of my life. Mm-hmm. And to go, wow, I got 3 opportunities today to in our terminology, to bless somebody. Wow. Yeah. Being rich in blessing. It's huge.
And if you tie that, I think, to your campus's Restore component, the way in which you're choosing to express how you're blessing your community, then, I think for that whole day, you've got some extremely practical application of something that is definitely a new way to look at it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we're not done talking about things that we don't usually like to talk about, but we always talk about. And then that brings us to session 2, because then we're going to be rich in generosity. Command those who are rich to be generous.
Yeah. Tell you a quick story.
Paul. Yeah.
Tell you a quick story. Really good guy at one of our campuses, very committed, gives of himself and his time as much as anybody I know, and in the very much unsung hero roles. But he took me aside, and he said, I got to, kind of take you to task on something. You guys always make generosity a code word for give more money. And that's not what generosity is. And I wasn't sure what to do with that. And because in a sense, kind of, I went back and looked at generosity in the scriptures, and every single time generosity is mentioned as a human being being generous, guess what they're doing? Are they being generous? Are they being generous in spending a little extra on the Christmas gift? Are they being generous with their time? Are they being generous with their prayers? I could be wrong about this, but I didn't find a single time in the entire scripture where the word generosity was used in any other context for human beings. Now, God being generous is expressed in all sorts of different ways. But if it is indeed a code word for give more money to the Jesus mission, at least we didn't make that part up.
There you go. That's a good story. That's interesting.
Yeah.
We probably need to do some more fact checking.
And so then I went back to the guy and I said, "In your face, loser!" I did like this a lot.
You're like, can I see your checking account, please, sir?
Yeah. No, and I never did go back to him and say that, because before I just said, well, I'll give that some thought and I'll relay your concern to the teaching team. So consider it relayed.
There you go. All right, well, this continues the thought process that Paul is giving instruction to Timothy about those who are rich, to be generous. And then we have another, maybe less known parable.
The least preached parable that is more than 2 or 3 lines. The least preached parable in all of Scripture, because Jesus seems to be praising a guy who is a shyster financially. The parable of the so-called shrewd manager, and shrewd is, I think, kind of Bible speak for the parable of the dishonest, taking his boss for a financial ride manager. But it's a great story. It is a truly great story, truly great parable.
Because what is it? Like, just what's the parable?
No, the parable is this guy who's a manager, and he finds out he's going to get fired.
Okay.
And so he goes to the guy who owes his manager X number of gallons of oil and says, of olive oil, and says, write down that you owe him 10 gallons instead of 35 gallons. And the guy says, okay. And then he goes to the guy that owes his manager X number of bushels of wheat and says, don't write down that here, let's change the accounts here. He's cooking the books. That's what he's doing. He's cooking the books. But then when he does, and then he does get fired, he's really sitting pretty, because who wants to take care of him? And who is glad to see him coming once he's been fired? Everybody that he helped. He helped, because when he got fired and they closed the books, everybody came out ahead except the manager. And everybody's going, and Jesus is saying, be like him. All ye accountants, cook the books when you're about to get fired. No. Jesus says this incredible thing. At the end of the parable, it says this. It says that the master didn't get mad at him when he found out what he'd done. It says the master commended the dishonest manager because he acted shrewdly. And then Jesus says, for the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are people of the light. But then he says, I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourself, so that when it is gone, you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings. And it's like a classic tag. Because what I'm talking about is using money in a way so that you'll be welcomed into eternal dwellings. And so he's painting this picture of going, use your money in such a way that when you die and get to heaven, people who got there before you are going to go, dude, thanks for using your money, man.
Right.
Because I don't know that I'd be here if you hadn't.
Thank you for giving to the Lord.
And you know what?
Like
say what you want, but that was a freaking great song.
It was a great song.
It was a great song.
I'm not,
It was a great song. And it's a vision of life that is, it's just wonderful. The idea that what I'm most interested in is when I get there to have people go, dude, if you hadn't tithed, I don't know that I'd be here. Dude, if you didn't, if you hadn't gone above and beyond, I might not be here.
Right. Thanks
for making the sacrifice you made for me then and there so I could be here and now. And I don't know, man, if a party in the world that is to come, in the age that is to come, if a party in your honor where people are just all over you and happy to see you because the way you use money got them there, if that doesn't inspire you, then you are going to hell because you're greedy. Well, I should say, if that doesn't inspire me, then I am going to hell because I'm greedy. Just like going, no, I'd rather have a lot for myself now than have da-da-da-da. Because Jesus isn't saying that if you do this, you won't make it into eternal dwellings. He's just saying you'll miss out on the experience of
talking about the quality of the afterlife.
Yeah, and you'll miss out on being welcomed, you know?
And I think that, again, I mean, it's sort of like the, what you have here, this sentence in the graph itself. Our financial generosity becomes a trademark of people who know that this age is temporary.
Yeah. And
the only thing that really lasts is what lasts in the age to come. And I think from a, it's like, why does God call us to this? Why is it only about money? Yeah. Well, part of the reason is because you want it to not be.
Yeah. Yeah. And like for me personally, I turned 50 last December, which I don't feel so bad about because Dave Ferguson turned 50 last October.
Burn. That's a burn.
But almost every single day now, I think, how will I ever retire? And last week I actually was chastised by someone and received the chastification.
Chastitude.
Yeah. And they said, you wiped out your retirement 2 times for giving campaigns, and you didn't have that much in them when you did, and that was stupid. Because if you just held on to those would have grown. Those little bits would have grown. And then I first said, well, but I wouldn't have had any extra to give if I didn't. And they're going, yeah, but the church didn't need that extra X $1,000s. They need the big fish to give. And now you are sitting with, essentially, in your retirement account, what you've gathered since the last time we did Impact. Mm-hmm. And I was like, crap, I was stupid. Because now I have less for retirement. And it's like going, that was like so evil. Because should have been like, yeah, man, I wiped out the retirement account twice. And sure, it had a grand total of $8 in it, but it was so people could find their way back to God. And it's like when it alarms me at just 50 years old. Something about turning 50 did it. Turning 50 got me thinking of going, okay, how am I ever going to have enough money for when I retire? And it's like going, okay, you don't know that you're ever going to retire in the first place if you're going to live that long, and yet you think about it every day. I don't think about it every day, how many people may have been, for lack of a better word, saved because I tried to be a good steward of my money. And so this one was just like in my face. The last one on generosity was in another guy's face. This one was like right up in the facial area. And the notion that we could have people walk out of a service going, you know what, each day I'm going to be more interested in what I am accruing wealth-wise for the world that is to come, because that's a sure thing, and that's a forever thing. And this retirement thing, where my goal is to chase a little white ball over a very well-manicured green lawn, what the heck was I thinking? Not because you shouldn't do that, but that your first concern was how much money are you storing up for your retirement. I would guess there's very, 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 very few people who don't give any concern for their retirement once they get to be this guy's age, in comparison to how much they give to the Jesus mission. Because even though you can't say this person or that person was saved because I gave, but it's like going, oh yeah. So we're trying to just blow the roof off the sucker of what it means to give, not because it's a moral good, not because it's a commanded good, not because it's a feel-good good, but because you're accruing wealth for yourself that literally lasts forever, and that is what it really means to be rich. And we're going to change people's worlds, hopefully mine at least, and saying, you know what, that was a series when I stopped wanting to be rich and started wanting to be rich.
Well, and I just hope I get to that. I hope I receive it that weekend, because
How's
I've got
your retirement, Eric?
I've got so many years before I get to 50.
Yes.
That I've got time.
You do.
To be able to just kind of map that out. So I'm really just hoping that this sinks in.
So this can be a cautionary tale from your elders.
It's a cautionary tale for the younglings.
Yes.
From the elders. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. We may have to get Dave to preach on that weekend too, since he's older. Even than you. All right. Well, it's week 3, and now we're going to be rich in community.
Yeah.
Community. That sounds hauntingly familiar.
Yeah, but we've never spoken of it this way before.
I love that. Let's hear about the difference.
Never. It was actually kind of a textual thing. We looked at it and we saw this because what it says in the originals, it says to be rich in generosity and willing to share, as if those two things are kind of the same thing. But then we get thinking about it. Being generous and being willing to share aren't the same thing, because being willing to share is a way that you live with your possessions, whereas generosity is what you've already done with your possessions. And so we on the teaching team said, okay, that's a third aspect of generosity, and that is being a person who lives in a way that shares. And so you can be generous with somebody, and you can be good to somebody who's not necessarily a part of your faith community. But when it comes to truly sharing, I mean, you might share half your sandwich with the homeless guy, but you don't think of it that way. You don't think about, yes, I share with the homeless, or I share with those in Africa. No. You share with people that you're close with. And so he was, the apostle was addressing the people to be rich in what it means to share. Because like little kids, who do little kids share with? At the lunch table. Anna is going to share. How old is Anna now, though?
She's 8.
That still counts as little.
Sure.
Yeah.
Just don't tell her that.
Yeah. She may have shared with the kid she didn't know. But the odds are she's more likely to share with the kids that she usually eats lunch with.
Right.
You know, and so we're going to talk about sharing. Isn't sharing nice? No, we're going to talk about this thing of living a life in your small group where we have a small group that not just helps each other out, but lives in a sharing sort of way. And it got us to thinking about John 13:35, where Jesus says, the way the world is going to know who's a Christ follower is by the way that they love other Christ followers. Which, if you think about it, is not what we believe. We believe that they'll know you're a Christ follower because of what you do for the poor, or because of how you don't cuss.
Yeah, or what you do to try to help non-Christians come to your church, or be friendly to strangers, or even in some ways taking the Good Samaritan parable on its side and not necessarily applying it the right way, but just saying being a friend to a stranger. Yeah,
and Jesus didn't say that. Jesus presumed all of that, and he said, oh, but don't forget the love you have for one another. Because see, that's what breaks God's heart, is when we are a generous, good deeds people who don't live in community. Some of the biggest givers at our church are not in small groups.
Wah, wah.
And are we glad they're big givers? Yes, we are. Yes, we very much are. At the same time, we're always thinking, how do I get so-and-so in a group? You know, we got this check from a guy that hardly anybody knows. And they just wander in and out of services. And see, they're rich, and they're rich in good deeds, and they're rich in generosity, but they aren't rich in community. And so we're talking about being rich in community and having a life that looks something like what you see in Acts 2:44 through 47, where it says that the believers were together and had everything in common. This is a text that has been argued over and over and over again. Some suggested that they lived in a commune where there was a vow of poverty, that there was no private property. And I don't know any biblical scholars off the top of my head who still hold to that view. Because in the next thing it says they sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need, not to become part of the community. They retained private property, obviously, and
as needs came up,
and
as
needs came up,
willing to share.
Yeah, and see, but it's a smoke screen and a red herring to chase after, oh, were they or were they not living in a commune where there was no private property? Because the thing that's really weird and really radical is that they held everything in common, and that their view was, if I got it and you need it, you can have it. And if I don't got it and you do got it and I do need it, I'm going to be all right because you're going to let me have it. And I know a guy that lives that way. I'll tell the story frequently. I know a guy who bought stuff just so he could loan it. He had the Lord's chainsaw, which was a chainsaw. Because how many will actually have chainsaws? He bought the Lord's chainsaw so he could loan it. And people would come to him and they would say, Tommy, can I borrow the Lord's chainsaw on Saturday? And they would say, yeah. He also had the Lord's truck, because a lot of people don't have a truck. So he had an old beat-up truck, and he loaned everybody the Lord's truck. And he had all of the things. But then when you got to know him better, you realized that he considered everything he had the Lord's. And so somebody said, you want to borrow the book? And he'd go, Lord's book. And people would say, well, aren't you, you loan everybody everything you've got, aren't you? And so they're not going to take care of your property, and he's going to say, well, it's not my property, it's the Lord's property. And if they mess up the Lord's chainsaw, they're going to have to deal with the Lord on that. And he's truly the only human being I've ever known personally who lived that way. And in fact, it got so much so that he got a little rubber stamp, and they went around stamping all their goods, property of Jesus Christ. Please return to Jesus Christ. And they got stamping stuff, which didn't make the mom happy when the two grade school boys started stamping the backs of the furniture. It didn't make her that happy. But
is this God's or Ethan Allen's?
Yes, yeah. And to me, there's something about that. And I want to be that guy that it's, if I got it, you can have it. I'll loan it to you. I'll share it with you. And just imagine how our church would be different if everything we owned was on the share market, at least for those who are in our small group. You need a car, your car doesn't get good gas mileage, and you got an 8-hour trip coming up, here, take mine. It's a turbo diesel. It gets 50 miles a gallon. Take mine. Well, that's 26 cents a mile, and I'm driving to Memphis and back. That's 1,000 miles. And you're going to let me do that, and you're going to drive around my Oldsmobile Brontosaurus that gets 8 miles a gallon? Oh yeah, it's the Lord's car. Anyways, take it. Go on, take it. It's just a vision of community. And it's a challenge to get in community with small groups, but it's also a challenge, especially to those who are in small group, to be a small group that shares. Not swaps, because that can be wrong.
Yes.
If taken the wrong way. This is not
totally different show.
Yes. This is sharing what you have. And I think, we teach our children to share. We try so hard to teach our children to share. And then we get older, and we stop. I went next door. May I tell a quick anecdote?
You sure may.
I met next door to my neighbor, and I said, "Can I borrow your weed eater?" And because he's got a really, he has a magnificent a magnificent beast of a weed eater. And he said, you could see him looking, casting about, going, what am I going to say? And he goes, oh, it's charging right now. It's charging right now. But can I help you fix yours? Because my weed eater was in disrepair, as it always is. And so he actually spent like 2 hours fixing my weed eater so he wouldn't have to lend me his. Now, considering the disrepair that my weed eater is in, you can't blame the man for not wanting to lend me his weed eater. But still, the thing was, the notion, I don't lend my stuff. He had one of those garages, you know, where everything is on the wall and there's pegs and stuff,
right.
and he always puts things back there,
yep.
you know, and he's not an unnice guy. He took 2 hours to restring by hand my weed eater, and I'm grateful. But there was still that feeling of going, he doesn't want to lend his weed eater because something might happen to it. And see, that's you know, it's interesting. The word miserable is based on the word miser, and a miser is someone who holds on to what he has, tries to keep it. And so the best way to be miserable is to be a miser who tries to hold on and preserve what he has. And then Jesus comes along and says to us, and the Lord's Spirit comes along to us and says, be willing to share. Be willing to share. That just be that way. Be rich in community, because the rich tend to be the ones who are most concerned about what happens to their stuff. And the rich is usually us, who has nice stuff.
And yeah, that's 98% of us.
At
really,
least.
At least. So,
at least.
In case you were wondering still if this series was for you, it is definitely for you.
Unless you're a single mom who is losing her rent and you're being evicted and you have a car that doesn't work and you're not sure how you're going to feed your kids in the next 2 weeks. You can take a pass. And then we'll live out this series, and then you won't have those problems anymore,
right.
because it's our fault
right.
that you're like that. Because there shouldn't be anybody like that for very long in our midst.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's a good word. All right, well, that's 3 weeks worth of Be Rich. I think it's good stuff. You know, this is one of those series, too, where I'd really encourage you to gather resources as we're building this content to make it distributable across platforms beyond the weekend. You know, it's just one of those things, just the reality of our lives, that vacations take place. So people are gone. People like the idea of being there, but they just aren't. And so you know, this 3-week hit is definitely some powerful stuff. So as you're brainstorming, as you're thinking about ways to make this content available online, through whatever, you know, presence you might be able to extend the kind of the big idea topic beyond the small group experience and the large group experience, I definitely encourage you to brainstorm in that way.
Can I tell one more quick story?
Yes.
Close friend of mine. His son has become friends with a young man here in Naperville who 4 years ago lost his brother in a drunk driving accident. And then a year later, his mom killed himself.
Herself. His mom
Yes.
killed herself.
Yes. His mom killed herself
Yes.
in despair over the drunk driving death. And then, like, I think 3 months ago, then his dad was killed in a car accident. So now, and he only had a brother, a mother, and a father. And so now he's living with friends. And this buddy of mine is going to Cancun for his timeshare. And he becomes obsessed with, how do I get the money together to take this kid with us on vacation? Now think about it. We would feel so justified in not sharing our vacation. This is a family vacation. I don't want this kid that I don't know. And the kid is not like an angel. The kid had to change school because he got in a lot of trouble before all of this happened. And so he's a troubled kid. And he's not the nicest kid in the world. And he's like going, he becomes obsessed with, how do I take this kid on vacation with me? And he's wanting to share the family vacation with a kid he doesn't know, who was actually expelled from a previous school for well, I'll just say it, for sexual harassment. He was expelled and had to change schools. But then he lost his entire family, and now my buddy is just obsessed with how do I get him a ticket to take him to Cancun with us. And I thought, oh, this is cool. This is July, and it's like going, who could you take on vacation with you? Because you're going to take some vacation in August. Who could you share your vacation with? Oh, no, that's a family vacation. That's a sacred cow right there. We don't touch that. We don't have people over when it's time to open presents at Christmas.
Right.
Because that's family.
Right.
Right? And so that's one of the applications, and Eric made me think of it. You made me think of it. I'm going, maybe the application is take somebody on vacation with you. Maybe take a family with you in the church or in your small group who you know isn't going on vacation this year, or who for them it's a day at the Dells. Think about it, a day at the Dells. I'm going to drive 3 hours up there, go to the cheap water park, and then come back. And that was our only vacation because we took. What'd you do this summer? Oh, we went to the Dells for a day. Or that'd be an awesome platform to go do vacation radically different. Take somebody with you, especially somebody who couldn't go or who wouldn't go. There are so many ways to be rich in good deeds, to be generous, and to be rich in community. So many ways. And this series, I am convinced, is really going to stretch our brains and hopefully break our hearts so that they can be knit back together and transform us into people who are different, truly different about this.
I love it. I love it. Well, go get them for large group content, for small group content. Maybe you're listening and experiencing this as you're getting ready to teach on this topic. We are praying for you and looking forward to the good work that God's going to do. So for Tim Sutherland, I'm Eric Bramlett, and thanks for joining the Big Idea Podcast, and we will see you later. So long, everybody.